welcome to Leap Taken. Here at Leap Taken, I talk about all things witchy, craft related, law of attraction, manifesting, esoteric, and everything else in between. And today I want to talk about something that was super helpful with me along my spiritual path, and that is finally breaking through the last of the fear, the last of the blockages, doing that shadow work and kind of coming out from the other side. And what I've learned, and this isn't just like a one event thing. There's been iterations over the years. So doing the work, and then coming out from the other side. I'm going to be honest about my concept of healing. I'm not really a fan of people who push the narrative that, oh, you're always healing. You're always going to be healing. I've talked about this before. I don't think that's beneficial for most people to constantly feel like something is wrong with them. And when we talk about the concept of healing from what? At some point, are you healing, or are you just existing, doing certain behaviors that are harmful to yourself? Now, we can get into the analysis of why that is. And then once we find the root cause, that could be something that you need to heal from. But just on the surface of healing from what? Okay, so something happened, it hurt your feelings. Okay, so hurt is hurt, and you may need to heal from that. But what is that exactly? And I'm not saying this to belittle or to minimize. However, I think that a lot of spirituality and concepts of spirituality, and just a balance of mind, body, spirit, and so forth, has been reduced into these bite-sized words and phrases, and people are just sort of running loose with that. And they're just, a lot of people are just regurgitating the same information, the same buzzwords. But let's really get into the concept of healing. If you're going to heal from what exactly? Stop looking surface level, go deeper. But you know what? Before we can even go too much into that, I want to get back to the subject matter, because I'm about to go on a full-on tangent. And that is, you've come from the other side. So you are at the point in your life where you understand, you know what you're healing from. You're not just blanket speaking, oh, I'm in my healing phase. No. So for me, I have had routines, negativity, and just another's energy influenced me in such a way that I had to go in and undo damage and repair, which was in fact a healing process. I didn't put an end date on that time. However, I feel I'm on the other side of it. I'm on the other side of what that process looked like. So now, this is just where I'm at. It doesn't erase the event. It doesn't make the experience of the past less painful. It's just over. And I'm not tending in the way that I had been to those wounds, those internal wounds. I'm not tending to that. I'm not healing that, because I feel that that's already been tended to, and it's healed to the point that I can move forward and now start using those aspects that had been wounded. Okay, that's the process of coming out from the other side. So if your heart was broken, at some point, you should use your heart again, right? Metaphorically speaking, you should use your heart again, as opposed to, you had to heal, protect it, and sort of go into a hermit phase. But we don't need to do that anymore. And that's what it looks like to come out from the other side, just using that example. I set a goal. When I am doing something that others would consider mundane, my spirituality, my focus, my goals, it's all interconnected. I'm consistently looking for overall balance. That doesn't mean I'm serious. That doesn't mean that I'm always in like a spiritual mindset and I don't just talk about regular things. I talk about all sorts of things. I clown, I kid, joke around, whatever, However, I'm aware that when I'm having those range of emotions where I'm just laughing and I'm having fun. I know what that also does to me. This is the difference. I'm aware. In the moment, I'm not necessarily processing this because I don't have to. But trust me, I am also, there's a part of me aware that there's nothing but an upside to this. The more I feel, the more I feel, the more I let loose, the more I'm living my life. That definitely transfers into the readings that I provide, the magic, the spells that I cast, the rituals that I perform, the communion that I have with my ancestors, spirit, and the different deities. My mind is cleared because of the physical activity that I do. My thoughts stay more aligned to my purpose and the goals, the things I say I want to do, the spells that I've cast, the things that I'm manifesting, because I am intentional about the way I live my life. Meaning, once I become, it's not that I don't have issues, I don't have problems. For instance, I discussed recently, I am trying my hardest to reduce how much time I spend on these apps, social media, for just consuming purposes, right? Because that's not the best. So, where I think for me, it's not that I can't mess up, or some days I might go a little too hard on it. It's just that I'm coming from a holistic point of view. And because I am, the intention, in the same way that I have control over my thoughts and mind, I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. The same way to be a witch is to be able to control your thoughts, to be able to manifest. And I'm going to say that under being a witch, you need to have control of your thoughts, not 24/7, but you should at will be able to control how your mind thinks, how it's operating. You should have some level of control of those thoughts, of your conscious mind. So if you have not mastered that, and you're a practitioner or witch or spiritual person, and you're trying to do something like stop how much you're consuming social media, it can be very difficult. But when you when you have successful spells work and your rituals are producing actual results, meaning whatever it is you did in a ritual, even if it was just for releasing or for bringing in energy, when that really works for you, you can do other things as well. You're using that same energy, you're using that same magic. So I'm essentially putting that magic onto that, and I am better at it than I was beforehand. Like I can control my thoughts to say, okay, we want, it would be so simple to just pick up the phone and just scroll and see what's going on. Or we can go ahead and read this book, or we can go ahead and do some writing, or we can go ahead and do some content creation, or we can sit here and veg out and watch yet another series of Charm, another round of Charmed again, which by the way I'm doing. So we could do that, or, we could go outside, or we could, talk to someone that we know, or, we can, like I said, just go visit a place or go do something like that. There's so many things. I mean, and it doesn't, whatever I consider fun, I can go paint, I can go create something. I can go play in makeup. I can work out. There's so many other things I could do besides just mindlessly scrolling on that phone. Yeah, just having that will, knowing how strong your will is, understanding your intention when you're on the other side of the shadow work and all of that. When you're healed, you can work in that space. Another thing I want to point out is that the fear of trying something new. And I know a lot of you are listening like, what do you mean? I'm not afraid of trying something new. Hear me out. What I am noticing is this energy, especially from like Black Americans, that, and I see this as a talking point quite often, and it's a little offensive because I don't think it's helping anybody. This idea that if you're African American, why are you doing that European stuff? Basically, the stuff I do. Why are you doing that European stuff? And that's not really accessing magic and things like that. So hearing this, a lot of people, even if you don't really buy into it, you might internalize it some way. You have to be careful. The energy, the media that you consume, the people you listen to, if that's kind of their attitude about things, then eventually, especially if you like everything else they're saying, you might start to get into, I'm just saying, you might start buying into that as well. So let's have this conversation as well. So if you are a Black person who is of African descent, born in this particular country, the United States, and you are on a spiritual journey yourself, and you're coming across people who refer to themselves as hoodoo, and or other people who are initiated, which is a whole other ballpark, but I'm going to keep this very high level. And the person or the people are telling you that when you bring up some of the information you've already learned and you start talking about things that might be under the Wiccan umbrella, even though you're not really saying you're Wiccan, but we'll just say, from that arena, and you're met with, oh, that's, that's what the European are doing. That's not what we do. That's not going to be as effective. That's witchcraft. Witchcraft is not the same as this, so it's not going to be as effective. I have actually had this said to me, so I'm not just reaching. Hear me out. I would tell you, you're dealing with a closed-minded person. We don't need to compare to make something better. And I see people who look like me really limit themselves. And do you know what typically happens, especially with the younger folk? They eventually fall out of the enchantment wears off of the spiritual journey. And I see these people either just go basically do nothing, or they go back to Christianity. I have noticed ends up happening because you have set limits, and your mentors and your teachers have set limits on what can be done. It can only be done, like, you can expand, but only in this framework, because everything else is European. So let's talk about that. So we have people advising who may not be very well-read historians, because if we're talking about what's considered European, we can find a lot of these practices take us to back to where we actually are descendants of. So there's even everything from the Fae. There is a connection. They would stop looking for the exact terminology to be used. Certain practices, certain concepts, or they just are. And it's not framed in a way that the Europeans would frame it. However, we're talking about the same thing. And there is definitely connections to ancient cultures that have been in Africa that actually exhibit something that would be considered Fae, right? There's also, as far as witchcraft is concerned, or esoteric knowledge, and all of that, magic in general, a lot of that is rooted in ancient cultures that are also started in Africa. Well, humanity started in Africa, so there you go. So you can claim that as well. So this idea that it's, to be a witch is European because of the word. I mean, we're speaking English. Like, how far do you want to go with this? To be Black American is to be tainted with European. I mean, so you're already tainted. So you're already in. I don't know what to tell you, because they speak as if it's like a tainting, like it's a dilution of spirituality and of magic. Excuse me. And it's not as potent. It's not as real. That's how it's been presented to me. In the past, that's definitely how it was presented. Like, that's magic light. Let me show you the real stuff over here. That's going to limit you. If you're thinking like that, that's going to limit you. I mean, you can go for some time, but that's going to limit you. If your spell or if your work, your magical work involves constantly doing money spells, constantly trying to get these bills paid, constantly trying to convince this man or this woman, of your worthiness, or to repair a relationship and constantly trying to fix them or keep this person enchanted with you. And you're constantly doing that type of work and protection work and hexing. And that's pretty much the full gamut of what your magic is. That's the work that you're consistently doing. I don't think that's going, how do you ascend, as the practitioner, as a spiritual being? You need to ascend from that, because to me you're dealing with just your base level needs, desires, wants, and so forth. It's never going above that. So that's my issue. I'm in my practice and where I'm at this point, all of those things I've talked about, yes, I do. Money spells, attraction spells, love spells, there's nothing wrong with that. Those are things that I do, but that's not the ending and beginning. Oh, and then you throw in some ancestor veneration, and that's pretty much the spirituality. Let me tell you something. It goes beyond that. It, it definitely goes beyond that. I'm over here in my own little mind, in my own little witchcraft world, in my own little room, in my own little cottage home. I'm over here working on healing on a grander scale. I'm over here trying to figure out how to amass enough energy to make change, to break through the blanket of will that capitalism, racism, xenophobia, all the isms, sexism, and patriarchy, all of that stuff that has created a blanket over our society, over our minds, over our world. I'm trying to pierce that. I'm trying to heal that. Essentially, as opposed to attack, what if I could heal? I'm over here thinking on cosmic levels about this sort of stuff. I live in worlds in my mind of, the reality I'm in now, and I'm responsible and I take care of things, to the alternate realities that I go to, sometimes escape to, whether it's the book that I'm writing, the books that I'm reading, communing with other witches, listening to their worlds from their perspective, because we all see our worlds a little bit different. Sometimes we can sync up, but for the most part, we all have our unique perspective. So their world is going to look different than mine. And communing with these witches and understanding where they're coming from, and then learning. And I'm doing this. I'm not thinking about consistently trying to get this man to stop cheating on me, or trying to get this woman to stop hating on me, or trying to get this $500 to go toward this whatever bill or do. Like, have I did that? Yes, but and I'm not. Listen, money. That's a whole. Okay, let's talk about ascension and money. Let's talk about what that looks like. So, one of the things that I've started to do, as opposed to focusing on just dollar amounts, is resources. I think a term of resources. If I want this, if I'm desiring this, if I'm manifesting this thing, and there's a value, dollar amount associated with it, I'm not focused on, I need money for this. I'm focused on, I want that. I'm not really interested in the how, the why, what's going on. I'm not really interested in that. I'm looking for the opportunities, the road. I do road opener work on how am I going to get from here to there, or how this is going to get from over there to here. That's what I'm focused on. So resources. So you start thinking about that. That's how you ever see people who travel and you're like, they don't make that much money. How they got that much time? Then they work. How do they have so much time off from work that they're always traveling, or situations where it just doesn't make sense? Like, you're watching, you're like, are they just like, is it all on credit? Like, how are they doing this? What people don't realize is that, I can't speak for everyone, but someone, especially those who intentionally tell you this, that they've tapped into a mindset. It's basically a mindset, which then is an energy, it's a frequency, it's a vibration that you're emitting, that things just come to you and you really believe it. Listen, you're going to need to be a little delulu for some of this stuff. You cannot. And it's hard because to get from casting spells for $50 to over here where you're looking, you're like, dang, I only have $50 and I wanted to go, out to dinner with me and the girls or brunch situation. You don't need no more than $50. You're gonna have fun. You probably gonna go shopping. You're gonna do a couple things. So you're like, huh, okay. So old me would have cast a spell for a certain dollar amount, right? Oh, I'm gonna need at least this much money. I just need this much money to come to me. Now, I'm not saying that those spells didn't work because there were times money would just appear in the most random ways. So I'm not saying that doesn't work, but to elevate, ascend a little bit more in my practice. So what I do now is I'm not starting from the deficit, meaning, stay ready so you don't have to get ready is my point. So what I do is I already work in, one of my goals is, for instance, a weekly outing, at minimum a weekly outing. I want to do something where I'm interacting with the land, I'm seeing something different, a museum, even if I just travel to a different area of the state that I've never been in, that's my weekly outing, right? And sometimes it's shopping. I might go to a place I haven't been or haven't been in a while, or hang out with a friend or something like that. So it's various things. I keep this wide open net. But the point is I'm trying to interact with the outside a little bit more and nature. So that's already a goal, right? I've already, every planner, book, my intention, it's all aligned and there's magic interlaced, okay? These things just happen. I'm not stressed about how, when, how much is the, it comes together because I say to myself, things just happen. Things always just seem to work out. And when you honestly say that to yourself, it really is true. Things just always seem to work out. Yeah, you had that rough patch, but it always came together, even if it was because of your hard work. Listen, I hate to tell you, there's some people who work hard and they don't get the rewards. They were busting their butt and are barely surviving, right? So the fact that you are busting your butt, you're out here doing it, and you keep getting these wins, even if they're small wins, every time you go to this place, somebody always buys something for you, or, just when you need it, the holidays and Christmas, there's always this extra bonus or a little extra money, that gift card, something always comes through and you could just make magic happen. I see that with single moms. My mom was one of those as well. As points in my life I was too. I was able to make Christmas magic every Christmas with these kids every single time. My kids don't have a Christmas where they felt like, oh, okay. They had to be understanding. There was always a way. There was always a way made. And here's the thing. Deep down, I always knew it always comes together. I don't know how, but it always comes together. That's something inside, deep down, I always truly believed. And therefore, it always came together. So it's not that far-fetched to start saying that to yourself. Things just seem to work out for me. Things tend to go my way. If I want something, it tends to go my way. I understand that it may not happen in this moment, but it usually goes my way. When I want something, it happens. And you just start talking like that conversationally to yourself. This is the mindset thing. And it starts off with just some words, and then something really clicks and you start to believe it. Your actions happen accordingly. So you set yourself up in a way where you're doing it. It is magic, but there's also some mundaneness to this as well. Because let me tell you what this really looks like. Let's break it out. So sticking with this same example, over here you're trying to do $50 spells, $100 spells, $500 spells to just make this ends meet situation. And I don't mean you did that once and, this is, and I'm really talking about myself, where you were kind of in this space often, like you're always doing this, to the point where things really just seem to go your way. It took some time to get there. However, you have to start trusting yourself. You have to start trusting your judgment, your intuition. That is hard because there's so many things in our society that tell us not to. Religion, men, your mom, your friends. I mean, sometimes even your kids. Like, people constantly have you second guessing yourself. Let's just be honest. People will really have you second guessing yourself. Shoot, you. So You have to start trusting yourself. You have to start knowing what's intuition and what's fear, what's judgment. You have to decipher that. These are concepts that are super important to get into this ascension level, to get past the shadow work, to get past the healing and getting on the other side. That's what it looks like. It is work. When challenged, what do you do when challenged? So you did the $50, $100 spells, so you got your money. You're back in the same situation a couple weeks later. You're back into it another week later, a month later. Okay, so you want to do something different, right? You want to change this up. But you have a lot of obstacles. You are late on your bills. Your credit is in the trash. It's low. Your relationships are not best. You're in a situation with someone. Maybe it's not a good situation, or you're not in a situation, and you're perpetually stuck in the talking phase and things like that. Because I know there's people like that. Or you haven't had a date in forever. Either way, you don't like your situation. You don't like any of this. It just feels like a repetitive cycle. It is. You've been bewitched, maybe not by a specific witch. Some of us are dealing with curses, y'all. Some of us are dealing with generational curses that are bigger than we realize, because it has affected your psyche in a way that you don't even see it. And you're in the same cycle. So let's break it. So the first thing if I'm talking to you, I'm telling you, you got to break this cycle. You might not like what that looks like, because you will have a tower moment. You need a tower moment. We got to knock everything down and rebuild. We got to get rid of the stuff that is going to put you back into that cycle. That's got to be taken out. And that might be people, places, and things. I'm not saying you can't interact with people again and places and things. I'm saying you're going to have to take a break from it, and you're going to have to redefine it. So that's step one. Tower moment is inevitable. And that's where the healing comes in, the shadow work comes in, because once everything's destroyed, you're going to need some help on deciphering, what am I keeping? Do I keep anything? And what am I building? So now you have a new framework. You have to be okay with that. Do you know how many people are not okay with the idea of starting over? I know people who are absolutely terrified to leave the city that they were raised in and that they grew up in. They're terrified. It scares them because, well, what if it doesn't work out? Well, what if it doesn't work out where you are now? There's this idea, well, at least I'm around people who. But yes, there are people who will help you, but you'd be surprised at the number of people who might not, or who can do it for a period of time. But if you've exceeded that period of time, you have to go someplace else, or you really don't want to go there. My point is, things happen whether you are in your hometown or whether you've moved. However, it can be good for some of us to leave, even if for a period of time. You don't have to stay away forever. It might be good for you to get away, because for some people, healing means removing themselves from what they need to heal from, become stronger, and then potentially you can come back for visits, or maybe you can move back, but you have a totally different mindset. Now, I'm gonna tell you, when that happens, the people in your life, the things that appeal to you, they won't. And the people, they won't want to be around you, because they will sense that you're different. They'll be critical, but they will sense that you're different. Once the tower moment has happened, once you're in the process of sorting, sifting on what's being kept and what you're building, now your mindset is shifted to, okay, thinking bigger than you've ever thought before, thinking outside your state lines, thinking outside your city lines, and thinking about what your space, your place in the overall world, in the collective, in the cosmos, like thinking much larger, thinking about purpose, opening yourself up to that sort of thing. And here's the thing, while you're doing all this, you could be starting over someplace else. You might not start where you want. You might want to be here. You're not quite there. You're down here a little bit, but that's okay. But here's the thing, once you start thinking in terms of purpose, and you have drive and motivation, which follows, you won't stay here. You'll get to where you want soon enough. And here's the crazy part. In this process of the tower moment where you start to dream your dream and dream this life for yourself, um, there's times where you're constantly redefining, because the more knowledge you gain, you realize, well, wait a minute. I was still thinking from where I was at and what I thought I would desire, what I thought would make me happy, what I thought I wanted my life to be. But once you're now moving along in your healing process and you're doing your shadow work and you're getting further along in that process, you may be shocked to realize that all that other stuff didn't mean anything. Prime example, oh, I thought I really wanted to just have unlimited money so I can buy the things that I want. And I love designer things, where the more you live, the more interactions you have. It's not that you don't still desire those things, but not on the level that you did before. So now it's more of a thing like, wow, the more money I have, I can sure help other people, or I can take myself and put myself in other places to gain more knowledge. I could go to school, I can travel, I can take classes, things like that nature. And it's, again, yeah, you still admire, you still like the, expensive, you still have expensive taste, but you also have this thirst of knowledge. You also have become a lot more empathetic. And you'd like, those things are on scale with what you thought the designer luxury lifestyle was. So you would like to be able to balance a little bit of that, both of those things now. So you're not just thinking from a consuming point of view. You're thinking, oh, well, what else can I give and how can I receive and then, give back? Like, you're thinking in reciprocal nature as it relates to the collective, to society. Those are the surprising things that come along the way. And never sacrificing self and desire. It's just that you've expanded beyond just the concept of consuming. Because a lot of times people think about money and they think about consumption. And listen, I would too if I'm constantly trying to do $50, $500 spells to make ends meet. It would be nice to be on the side where you get to consume a little bit more. So no judgment at all. However, I'm working through the process here. It's a lot of work. And listen, there's a lot of do-over moments where, damn, back in the same place again. We haven't even talked about poverty mindset, the lack mindset. You have to resolve those situations as well. That's where that shadow work comes in, and that's going to take some time. You might even go talk to somebody professional, whether it's an actual therapist, psychiatrist, or you may need some spiritual mentorship with that, just to help you, someone who is challenging you in a way that makes sense for you, to think outside of everything you've ever been taught, learned, and been influenced by. That's a big situation, right? But there are people out there who can help you with that, even if it's in the form of a course or a book or maybe a one-on-one situation. But it can be done if you're willing to put some work in and really give it 100% of your energy at the time to try to master this. Because once you get past that, which is hard, I struggle with the poverty, with the lack, my sense of lack. That was the one that I had to bust through repeatedly. I felt like it was a gigantic block of ice that it just, and my tools were just these tiny tools to try to break through. And not until some other shifts occurred did I realize I don't even need to chip away at this in this manner. Once, basically I evolved a little bit more on the topic, I realized, I don't have to do this by myself. I can get some help, which I did, various ways of getting some help to try to work through this, because there's a deeper problem here, and I need to get to that deeper root before I can get, like, I'm just chipping away at something and I'm spending too much energy on this. Like, I need to get to the root. And then eventually, once you get to the root of it all and you start going down memory lane and you open yourself up to the not so happy feelings of the past, and then all of a sudden that big cube of ice that felt like it was impenetrable begins to just melt away. And and then that's not a thing anymore. And even if it becomes a thing, again, you're fully aware of, like, hey, where is this thought process coming from? Why am I thinking like this? Why no, that's not for me. I don't have the, that's why am I thinking this way? Um, and willing, you're in touch with your feelings, your emotions, and you can understand why like when thoughts are coming in that's not your normal way of thinking anymore. You notice. Um, but this is what it's like to be on the other side. And I wanted to really talk about this because it really bugs me when I see this closed-minded way of magic, a magical lifestyle. Um, and I don't think people are all meaning bad when they say this. I understand where it's coming from. However, I think it's important to learn and practice is what makes sense to you. You may not be able to, I mean, you're not going to do everything all at one time, but why not learn about other mythologies? Because you'll be able to see the relation to the things that you hold dear, that you believe is of your ancestry as well. And when you start seeing you start seeing it beyond the color, and you start seeing it for how your ancestors would have seen it at the time. There's the collective, and and it's just the spirit and the soul and the essence, and you start to kind of transcend into this other type of thinking. You'll realize there are a lot of similarities, a great deal of similarities overall, amongst cultures, certain themes when it comes to spirituality. Start to see the overlap. So it's not something that is only European. We haven't even talked about, first of all, people it lets me know when I hear people speak like that, how limited thinking, unfortunately, that they have, at least at the time that they're speaking, because people change, people evolve, and maybe that's what they said then, and hopefully give an opportunity to grow. But you're only thinking in European terms. You're not thinking, what about the Asians? Have you thought about that? No. Do you study history? Do you have something in you that's interested in other cultures? No. Okay. Why? Why? And listen, I understand the need as a Black American person to want to define something that you belong to, because we're constantly being told we don't have a culture. Yes, people actually say that we don't have a culture, which is false. People say, well, we don't know where we come from. That's also false. I come from New Jersey, here in the United States, South Jersey to be exact, just outside of Philly. That's where I come from. My people came from Florida by way of Georgia, South Georgia. So actually Central Georgia, I'm wrong. Central Georgia, yeah, initially. So yeah, and eventually the Carolinas and so forth. So no, I know where my people come from. I know where my people come from. So I'm not going to sit here and say I don't know where I come from. I know where we come from. And it's like, well, what about beyond that? Well, beyond that, they come from, they were traveled here unwillingly, by way of ships across the Atlantic Ocean from the coast of Africa, West Africa. Most of my ancestors would have been taken, and if you're Black American, yours too, from the Western area. Of course, there's some, situations where that's not the case, but majority were taken from the coast, West Africa. So yeah, I do know. Well, what tribe? Before you get into telling me what tribe, I mean, I think about places like Nigeria. Nigeria is a name given after the fact. They were not called Nigerians before. That was something Europeans or something got together and made up. Like, the way Africa is dissected is not how our ancestors would have known it either. And these names of places that they changed and altered, Africa itself, the name of Africa was not something our ancestors named Africa. They didn't call the continent Africa. or themselves African. So if people there could work through that first, then we can get into what tribe I belong to. I'll just say that. But that's what it looks like to ascend, to not let that bother you, to not let that knock you off your spiritual pedestal that you need to be on. You need to put yourself up there, because a lot of us think we're not worthy of even thinking on these levels, to think that we can ascend in our spiritual form without some male deity holding our hand and putting us in some place. No, you could do that from yourself. You're capable, you're strong, and you're capable. We all have our own psychic abilities, our own intuition that we can draw from, our sense of higher self. And we can access that inwardly. Some of us is bruised. That's where I'm talking. You got to get to a healing process. You got to go through some stuff to get to this point. But once you do, and even during that process, because it's not a situation where everything is fixed all at once. Some parts are healing quicker than others in you. So your mindset, the shifting is not equal. It's going to be happening at different phases during this process. Not to mention, you'll have an opportunity to get downloads. You'll be shown, the universe will show you signs and symbols as you continue to shift, and you are shifting. And the last I'll just end this with is when you're on the other side of the shadow work and the healing and all the other work that you've put in to your spirituality, so that you feel like you're evolving and you are ascending. A lot of this is just hopefully comes with time. The last thing is really knowing yourself, having a strong sense of self, and being willing to adjust to the things that you want and the things necessarily that are just occurring. But your core self, knowing who you are innately, is important. And defining that, it's in all the parts, the parts where you realize you're a little stubborn at times, you are not so quick to warm to newness. Understanding that that's not necessarily a negative. That might be something that is a gift from your ancestors of discernment. You just need time to process. So that's not necessarily a negative. You need more time to process before you can have a decision on what needs to be done or what you're going to do, whether it's new people, new places. Some of us just move a little bit different. That's not a negative. But doing the work, doing the shadow work, understanding the healing process, understanding when you've healed, like you've dug deep enough. So, and these go hand in hand with shadow work. And like I said, being willing to reach out for help and being willing to receive the downloads and just sit with yourself and understanding who that self is, understanding that the things can change around me and I can adapt, but I'm still my core self. Knowing that what I thought was negative about me is actually protection, is actually discernment, is actually intuition at work. That has gotten me to this where I'm at right now. And these are not negatives. And reframing, and that's that mental alchemy coming into play, reframing just your thought processes and your mindset. And this is just working on self. Now, once you're where I'm sitting, there's this balance going on. And then you start to see the world totally different. The people you know and love, the people you interact with, you start to see the whole. That's where we start getting into conversations about auras, or you see, you can't describe it, but you just see something around them, or there you can feel. Some people see, other is feel. You feel energy off people, even from pets, your plant life. You just vibe. You're picking up on it. You can't turn it off. I mean, and it's not a thing where it should be impeding your life, but it's just you're interacting with the world. And that's when you get to that point. Now, remember, all these things don't have to be happening at the same time, because that's just not how we work. Some of us, maybe you get all this at one time. You start seeing stuff, you start feeling stuff. For some people, it might just be you feel stuff. For some people, it's more premonition, which is an interesting thing where through dreams, they'll know ahead of time this situation is going to occur, this interaction is going to happen, and you're going to feel this way. So when it does come, they kind of have an idea already, like, oh, now I know what's going on. And you can have all these things happening at the same time. It's just a wonderful process. It can be overwhelming for some of us. It can be scary. And if you're on this other side and you start getting scary, you need to go back in. Let's do some more shot. Why are you scared? We got to get to the root. Stop letting surface level spirituality rule you. Stop just going on the top of, yeah, well, it's probably just some of my old Christian beliefs. Okay, well, let's explore it. Let's dig deeper. Let's get uncomfortable with it. Let's dig deeper on what specifically in Christianity brought about this level of scariness when you're over here ascending, as you're realizing your connection is to this universe and spirituality on a more broad level. What over here did you bring? What specifically? Because once you know what it is specifically, for me, I realized the thing that haunted me was what I had read as a child in the book of Revelations. And I realized those monsters, because there were monsters in my head that I had been reading about. I was intrigued because I was always intrigued in dark stuff like that as a kid. There was a little bit in me that always liked that darker side. So I was intrigued about that. But at the same time, I was terrified with that. And because I was told it was literal. So that means this is really going to go down. This really went down. And apparently from what these people were telling me every time I go into this church, it's going to go down again, just like that. So, yeah, the idea of the world ending in a fiery pool of fire. Yeah, just fire and I'm being burned. And it's terrifying as a child. So imagine in my practice, candle flame gazing and seeing things in the flame. There was some residual fear thinking about that. Seeing imagery of the horned god kind of spooked me as well, because the horned god, I had some residual stuff there going on from my days that I was indoctrinated as a child. So I needed to get to that. And once I understood what that was, I had to do something about that. So that's where education comes into me. And that's where I started learning to dissect and to go on a historical fact-finding mission on the legitimacy of that religion itself and its Bible. And that is also part of the process. I keep talking about gaining knowledge and education. Educate yourself. And then here I sit. Here I sit, still learning, still opening myself up to spirit, still seeking information, still connecting, still being open, and with less barriers, less obstacles, less attachments from past way of thinking. Yeah. So hopefully this is helpful. This is yet another conversation that I was looking forward to having about the concept of ascension and evolving your spirituality, and more importantly, being where I'm at now, being on the other side of the work that has been done. And please understand, what your work looks like may not be mine. You may never had to struggle with the lack mindset. You may never had to struggle with divorcing yourself of Judeo-Christian beliefs. So your work doesn't look like, your work might be just to be willing to even delve into spirituality. For some people, not everybody has these backgrounds. For some people, it's just simply on deciphering what's real and what's not. And that's some work. That is work in itself. What's real and what's not. You know, what is, to what extent. And then we have the people who are dealing with mental health challenges and their spirituality. That is his own set of work as well. So your work can look different, whatever that is. And for some of us, maybe you don't feel there is any work to be done. You just took to this life. You might have been brought up into this world of witchcraft and spirituality and paganism and so forth. So you don't have that. You don't have that at all. And kudos to you. I wish I was brought up like that. And it just is. I think the only thing with people like that is sometimes burnout, or sometimes just like I call it, a disenchantment with the craft. Because those people have been exposed and they have a lot of knowledge. So you can become complacent and sort of bored with your work, with your practice, right? So there's a different type of work that would need to be done to sort of reintroduce the enchantment. So their work will look a lot different from everyone else's. But yeah, so I'll end it here with this topic. I'm glad I did this topic because it gave me an opportunity to be in a space of gratitude and to toot my own horn, letting that ego out on just how much work I've done to get to where I sit now. So thank you for watching. This is Mika at Leap Taken. Please like the video if you've enjoyed this, and subscribe if you'd like to subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. Also, Leap Taken has a membership. You would be supportive of the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. And there's really good perks as well. So go ahead and click the link to join. Also, or not link, it's at a button right here to join Leap Taken membership. Head over to my website, leaptaken.com. You can check out the services that I offer. And once again, thanks again for watching. All right, bye.